¿Qué tal, salvajes? Hoy damos la bienvenida a Grutle Kjellson de la banda Enslaved, quienes vuelven al país este 8 de noviembre a Colombia Metal Festival de Cacique Entertainment. Welcome, Grutle. It's an honor to have you here in our space.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, so let's begin.
Yep.
So Enslaved is a band that right from its beginning has always valued its roots and its culture as a fundamental axis. In fact, you are the creators of the term Viking metal. How was it like to have this process of taking this old, ancient philosophical and cultural concept and taking it to modernity and extreme metal?
First of all, I think the first band that called their music Viking metal was Heavy Load from Sweden in the 80s. Yeah, you see, we come from the western part of Norway, and usually, I think that we have like approximately 220 days a year with rain. And it's pretty gloomy, and the area has been inhabited by sailors and fishermen and farmers, and it used to be a very poor area. So I mean, that level of melancholy and spirituality is still in our veins. So I mean, there's a strong historical and spiritual aspect with all artists dwelling in these parts of the country. It's kind of it's both here physically and especially mentally, and that goes for not only musicians, that goes for composers, painters, authors, all kinds of artists, really. So I think a fair share of interesting art has been made in the western part of Norway, and I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Nice, thanks, man. Okay, Enslaved undoubtedly has been an icon of Norwegian metal, and you've been in the scene right from the beginning. Could you tell us a bit about how was it like in the old Norwegian metal scene, and how has it evolved till today after all these years of evolution?
Oh yeah, I mean, when we started, joining the underground movement, late 80s, early 90s, everything was not like a local phenomenon, really. It was more like an international thing. It was tape tradings, demos, fanzines. It was all very, very underground. And none of the newspapers, the mass media, they didn't even know that such a movement existed. So we come from a very small place on the west coast of Norway, and we were basically the only band that played that kind of music back then. So we were in contact. We were more in contact with the bands from Czech Republic and Sweden and even Japan and Singapore, basically all over the world, than we were in contact with bands from a neighboring town, because not a lot of bands existed back then. It was all very much underground. There were a few bands in Oslo, there were a few bands in Bergen, and there were a handful of bands along the coastline. So obviously it was very, very different times, but things were growing. So by the mid-90s, we had Norwegian printed fanzines that you could actually pick up in the local newspaper stores, music magazines. But the mass media, like the biggest newspapers and television channels, they didn't pay attention to what we did musically. Maybe they cared of something else in the 90s, but still, the music wasn't really adapted by the common man in Norway until maybe 2000, 2001, 2002, when the mass media started to review our albums, and then it suddenly there was an eye opener for a lot of people, because people only knew about the church burnings and all that shit in the 90s, and they didn't even know the music at all. Very few did, at least. But nowadays we have like big festivals all along the coastline, big festivals in Bergen, in Oslo, and even in small towns like Haugesund, where like 3,000-4,000 people come along, and companies are like buying tickets for their employees, and they have a lottery where you can win a bottle of wine and a ticket for a metal festival. So
what?
Yes. So it has been quite of it has become from like a super unknown underground phenomena 30 years ago. It's like an activity of the common man in the streets to go to a metal festival every once in a couple of times a year. It's been crazy, really. If we stop for a minute and think about it, it has really become huge, and it was like so tiny. It wasn't even relevant for people 30 years ago. Metal was absolutely not relevant in Norwegian written magazines at all. So it has been quite an interesting journey, quite an evolution.
Wow, thanks. I wouldn't have imagined that so cool, like having companies give you like a ticket to a metal festival, like as a bonus. That's really something.
Yeah.
Okay, so in regards to Heimdall, it's your most recent album, released on 2023, and it encompasses somehow the past and the present of the band. Can you please tell us a bit about the creation process behind this album?
I mean, it all started with this time. It started with actually the concept started, the lyrical concept, the universe actually started before we went writing songs. It was me and Eva trying to figure out basically what to write about on the next album, and then we decided to take a closer look at Heimdall, which is like a really interesting figure in the Norse mythology, and little is known about him actually, just fragments. But I mean, we started to turn the stones, do a little archaeological work, so to speak, and we became more and more interested in this very enigmatic entity, and we basically found out that Heimdall, he goes way beyond the mythology. You can almost say that he's one of the pillars that the Norse mythology is based upon, because the Heimdall figure was already here, maybe as much as thousands of years before Norse mythology was created. It was like one of the first figures brought in. One of the figures that the whole thing was inspired by, and you can find like prehistorical, let's say, called versions of Heimdall on Bronze Age carvings, like rock carvings, petroglyphs, images that strongly indicates that this is the same god, this is the same figure. So Heimdall was already present, like at least 1,000 years before the Odin cult arrived in Scandinavia. which is really fascinating, and you can almost take it further. I mean, was he a Bronze Age creation, or was he actually even before that? Maybe even present in the mind of the Stone Age man, like several thousand years ago. And yeah, and so we actually ended up with more questions than answers about Heimdall, but it was really it really sparked the curiosity, the whole process, and it was a super interesting journey. Cool. Perhaps the most interesting concept that we have ever written about. And it all started with a song called Heimdall that we wrote back in 1992. So yeah, that's the connection between one of the first Enslaved songs and the latest album.
Wow, I will have to do some research on Heimdall just out of curiosity. Yeah. Nice. Okay, Latin America has always been some kind of like fortress of heavy metal, and today it's becoming a part of important European tours, as this one that will have you guys coming. So how do you see this evolution in regards to the importance that tour organizers that make these huge European tours are giving to the Latin American audience to include this region within their dates? What can we expect with this situation towards the future, and what can Latin American fans expect from the Enslaved show that is coming real soon?
Well, first of all, we are always trying to create some interaction between the band and the audience. So that's what a show, whatever form it takes, should be about. It should always be an interaction. It's all about creating the symbiosis between the band and the audience. The exchange of energy, that's the most important with a concert. And South America is really interesting because, I mean, we never went there back in the days, and the first time we even went to a South American country was in 2017, not more than 7 years ago. And we had a show in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. So that was the first show we ever did in South America. And then we had another round in 2019, and things were kind of, it seemed to be rolling. People seem to play more often in South America. But then we had the pandemic, of course, and then obviously, you know, all the boring stuff, that the plane tickets, logistics suddenly became a lot more expensive. But then again, you seem to be able to put some big festivals up and running. So we're going to do like a huge festivals in Colombia. We're going to do like in Chile. We're going to do in Mexico, and then we could actually also spend time on doing club shows. So we're going to do like one club show in Brazil and one in Argentina for the very first time in Argentina, actually. So that's going to be really interesting. And it was like playing in South America was just like a distant dream, like 30 years ago. Nobody did that. We barely spent any time in North America because it was all underground, you know. So interesting times. We're actually able to include an extra continent on our for our live performances, which is a good thing.
Cool. And what can we Latin American fans, like Colombians that have never seen Enslaved, what can we expect from the show?
A highly energetic, I guess exhausting show. I hope so. Sweat and tears.
Cool.
Like a rock and roll show is all about.
As metal should be. Cool.
Exactly.
Okay. Bands of countries such as Brazil and Colombia, bands like Sarcófago and the Colombians Parabellum or Masacre have managed to have certain contact and recognition and somewhat some sort of association to the first wave of extreme Norwegian metal, Nordic metal. At that time, did you have any opportunity of getting to hear some of these sounds of Latin American bands that probably be more appealing today?
Oh, I mean, back in the days, we obviously had access to Sepultura albums and Sarcófago, and I think wasn't there a band from Colombia on the same label? Massacre, they're from Colombia, right?
Massacre, yeah, Massacre, yeah. We call it Massacre. But yeah, it's the same band. Yes.
They were on the same label as us, I think. They were on the Osmos Productions in France.
Nice. Yeah, Osmos Productions.
So we heard that band in like, was it 91 or 92? They were actually signed to the same label, but a couple of years earlier, as far as I can remember. So yeah, we heard some bands from South America, but there were not that many back then. And I think later you had like Crisium, bands like that coming to Europe. And I think I saw some band from Peru as well. I saw them on a local festival.
Wow.
They were called Procession or something?
I haven't heard of.
Oh, okay, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So from time to time you have the opportunity to see some South American bands, but there are not a lot of them around in Europe. Every once in a while, I guess. Yeah.
Every once in a while, yeah.
As far as I know.
Okay. So Enslaved is a band that has made evolution its mantra, to be its mantra ever since way back. Could you tell us something about the plans you have for your next musical album?
The thing is, we never have much of a plan. We like to go with the flow, and the only plan we usually have is like not repeating ourselves, not doing the same album over again. And we have always been trying to have a very simple idea of trying to make our own contemporary favorite music. And we have never been afraid to incorporate elements from other music styles. We're basically a bunch of music nerds playing together and collecting music on our own. And obviously the music you are checking out, the music you are listening to in between the albums hugely contributes to color the songs you're making on the next album. So I guess that's why that's the main reason for the evolution. We like to explore, we like to widen our musical horizon, and we hate the idea of repeating ourselves. So that has kept us alive and together as a band for like 33 years. The urge to explore, pretty simple.
Well, thanks. Okay, we're getting to the end. So lastly, we want to thank you for being here in the microphones of Savage Noise Media, Colombia. And we're very, very much looking forward to seeing you guys in our country in the first edition of Colombia Metal Festival from Cacique Entertainment. So, yeah, can you please send a message to all of your fans in these lands and anyone who wants to see you here in this Savage Noise Media Cacique Entertainment gig?
Hello, Savage Noise. Be sure to attend the first big metal festival in Colombia, and we are for sure looking really much forward to play for you guys and make a hell of a concert together. All right? Like metalheads should do.
Cool.
Take care.
Savage Noise Media. Somos tu lado salvaje.